How do you improvise a guitar solo? How do you make a guitar solo sound interesting? How do you stop playing the same licks over and over again? These are the most common questions I get in our Nasty Guitar community over at patreon.com/nastysoul. So I figured now is the perfect time to make a video about this. And I'm not going to give some loose metaphorical advice on how to be more creative. I'm going to show you clear, easy, and effective exercises that will take your guitar playing to the next level of tastiness to make your next guitar solo just a little bit nastier. So let's get into it. Every solo starts with chords. Yeah, that's right, chords. Because if you don't know what you're soloing over, you can't solo like the masters. So let's vibe on this rhythm guitar part in the key of D minor. This is a simple common chord progression that you would find in any R&B or neo-soul setting, so let's check it out in detail really quick. We start with a D minor 9 chord, and our fingers are going to be on the middle 4 strings. And we'll separate the thumb from the fingers with our pattern thumb, fingers, little tap, and then grab all of them together. That's our pattern. I'll do the same thing on this chord, but what I could do is make an A7 sharp 5 with my thumb right here, so that way I can be ready to take my pinky off to a regular A7 chord for that last one. Then I go over to this G minor 9. My fingers are going to shift up to the top 3 strings. My thumb will still be on the root on the low E string. Same thing. Then I grab this chord, this A altered chord with my pinky stretched out right here. And the last one I take my pinky away. You can follow along with interactive tabs on my Patreon page, patreon.com/nastysoul. Over there, I'm constantly uploading interactive tabs, backing tracks, exclusive guitar courses that go along with these YouTube lessons to assist in your learning process and make it even easier to get better at guitar. Now we're gonna lay out the dope solo tricks pretty soon, but first we need to quickly get a foundation for this lesson. Of course, when trying to find what is the correct approach, sometimes it helps to consider what is the incorrect approach. Every student I've ever had that is just starting to learn how to solo, and maybe you can relate to this, definitely let me know in the comments if you've been there. They play up and down the scale they know. They start from the lowest note and they go up the scale. Maybe they go back down. Maybe they change the order of notes at random just to add some variety. And then they try and play as fast as they can without letting any notes ring. Honestly, just oblivious to phrasing. But don't take it personally. We're all here to grow, and I've certainly sounded like a horrible musician many times in my life. Here's an example of what that might sound like. It's not the worst thing in the world. If we're playing in rhythm and in key, it's a decent baseline for being able to make music. But we don't want that. We want to transcend into true musical nastiness. So let's consider what could be done better in this example. A simple starting point is phrasing and letting notes ring. Don't play up and down the scale as fast as you can. Groove with the music and let the guitar breathe. Play a phrase, take a breath, and then play a complementary phrase. The guitar has a slight disadvantage and is not an ideal musical extension of a human being because it doesn't require breath to produce notes like a singer or a horn player. Practice improvising with a couple of licks at the top of your head, so when you start soloing and your mind goes blank, at least you could hit a lick that should inspire your next improvised phrase. Or if you're stuck in repeating the same idea, play one of these licks that you've worked out beforehand, and you don't need to memorize a dictionary's worth of licks. Just 3 to 5 licks that you know really well is a great start. And the next level we want to be at with our improvisation is knowing what chords we're playing over. And yeah, we already talked about the chords, but are you thinking about the chords and how to hit those changes when you solo? I know whenever we learn a new lick or a cool idea, we try and throw it in at every moment and try to show off how sick we could play. And then when a solo comes, we just think in that key center and play the craziest shit we've ever learned. Kind of like this. Okay, it's kind of fun to play like that, and I'm sure you could find times when it's appropriate, but not too often. Also, it can have a wow factor, but for someone who just wants to hear something musical and doesn't care about your abilities on guitar, it's not going to engage the average listener, and kinda sounds like you're just practicing all your crazy licks instead of actually playing music. So let's finally get to that trick and exercise that will get your solo sounding more interesting and musical. Let me play one more example. Compared to the other examples, and especially in this musical context, I think this example sounds best. The solo is playing with the music, with the groove, and with the changes. There's clear phrases that give the solo some breath, and each phrase hits the changes. The easiest starting point for hitting the changes is ending a phrase on a chord tone. So if you're playing a lick over D minor, you could end it on the note D, which should be one of the most obvious chord tones. But we could learn the other chord tones by simply starting with triads. I was able to identify the chord tones because I know my triads. And this exercise will help memorize and apply both minor and major triads. Of course, with this knowledge, you'll be able to craft your guitar solos more intentionally and hit the changes. So let me show you a quick example of what this exercise looks like, and then I'll discuss it in more detail. Since we're focusing on using this in a solo context, we'll start with the top 3 strings and simply follow along with the chord progression while staying in one position for each 4-bar phrase. This can help your overall technique on the guitar as well if you alternate pick each arpeggio, and you can increase the difficulty by changing the rhythm to triplets or 16th notes. But technique isn't the main focus of this exercise, it's the fretboard knowledge. So the next challenge after you're comfortable with the triad shapes is to play a phrase over each chord, but start or end on a chord tone. Visualize a D minor triad and start on any one of those notes, and do the same for each chord, short, simple phrases to start. Here's a quick example of what that looks like. As a bonus for all Nasty Soul community members on Patreon, you can practice this exercise with Interactive Tab where you can loop and change the tempo, which is extremely helpful to track and push your progress further. Also, I've included the exercise play-alongs for triads on the other strings as well, so you can learn all the triad shapes across the neck. And of course, the full backing track used in this lesson where you can work out these ideas or just jam whatever you want over these changes. And remember, if you click that subscribe button, you'll have also clicked my heart button.